I'm Matt.
Hey, I'm Steve.
Hey, I'm John.
This is the Sober Friends Podcast. We're here for the sober curious, the new guy, and the old timer. We're here to talk about the stuff anyone looking to live alcohol-free has to face day to day, and how we overcame those struggles. We speak for no 12-step group, but we do try to remain anonymous. You're not alone. This is the Sober Friends Podcast. On the Sober Friends Podcast, Steve and I are 12-step people. We make no secret of that. It's what we've done to get sober, so it's what we're most knowledgeable about. However, as Tim Phillips said, well, why would you want me to be on your podcast when you're an AA podcast? No, we're not an AA podcast. It's what we know. But we're really curious about what other people do and how they get sober. I've invited Gillian Tietz back on the show. If you want to hear her story, go back to episode 60. It's fantastic. She has started a sober-powered life, which is one of those options to help you get sober that's not a 12-step group. Jill, welcome to the Sober Friends Podcast again.
Thank you. And shout out to Tim. Hey, Tim, we love you.
Tim is awesome.
Yep.
I look at Tim's Instagram feed that you can find at I Am Sober and Happy, and I'm like, that's great. How do you find the time to do that?
Yeah, go Tim. Seriously, I don't even want to have the time to do that. That is so much work to do all the editing and the energy. Yes. I just love the vibe that he brings.
I was early on looking for an example of what can a guy do to be successful on Instagram, because I can't shake a flat ass. I can't shake a flat stomach. I'm not as pretty as some of the women there. I'm not going to have a thirst trap. So what does a guy do? And Tim has exactly what a sober guy can do. He has, I talked about this either on a previous or a future show, depending on how I've recorded and put these out. And I posted it on Instagram that he has this one video that has the best explanation I've ever seen of what it's like if you have alcohol use disorder, of why you can't stop at one. And he nails it in like 20 seconds in a way that I have not been able to explain myself until I saw that. I'm like, okay, I don't have to do this video. I'm just going to share it because there's nothing more I can offer here. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Yeah, we love you, Tim. Keep going.
Absolutely. So how do you pronounce your name? Because it's Gill. Does that ever become a problem for you?
It's Jill, and it's a constant problem. I either get Gil or people spell it wrong, Gil, which I assume they're saying Gil in their head. Sometimes people call me Jill spelled with a J, but that actually doesn't bother me at all because at least they're saying it right.
I don't get my name very often, but my last name is Jurler, and that name has gotten destroyed since the age of 5. I can identify. So if you still see Jill Tietz around, please say
it's
your name
Jill.
right. Yeah.
Absolutely. When I got married, I was teaching 5th grade math, and I got married in September, at the end of September. So my kids had just met me, and then I came back from getting married with a new name, and the very first kid I interacted with, she's like, how do we say it? Because my maiden name was Kelly. It's just a regular name. She's like, how do we say your last name? Is it Mrs. Tits? And I'm like, oh my God. It's Mrs. T from now on. Yeah. I just told them T. Don't even bother with it. But yeah, the last name is now a problem too.
If I'm a 5th grader in your class, behind your back, I'm calling you Tits all the time.
They probably did. Now I have adults. They just call me like Professor or Miss, and it's fine. You don't even have to try. Name. It's not, but some people say tights. That's fine. It's better than what it really is.
I can identify there. I was not handed a great last name. I don't like saying it. I don't like sharing it, which is one of the reasons. Anonymity, but it's also another reason I don't put it out there because it just feels like something that you sound like when you're vomiting. That's the best way to describe it. Well, I'm excited that you're talking about a sober-powered life. I got to actually backtrack a bit. Why didn't I know that you were a 5th grade teacher? I swear, we haven't talked about this before.
My career journey was crazy. Like, I have done so many different careers, so many different jobs. I job hopped anytime there was a little issue with the job, I thought that getting a new job was the solution and that it was everyone else's fault and not mine. So my career, even though I only worked professionally for 10 years before working for myself, I have had more jobs than like most people have in their lives. So it's a very long story. You probably know a lot of it, but you don't know all of it.
Apparently.
It's just a lot.
How much credit do you give yourself for reinvention?
0.
How come?
Because I think I get a lot of guilt, and I always think that I'm like a bad person, or I'm doing things wrong, or I'm not good enough, or not smart enough, or I could be doing this better, or more things for free, or, you know, whatever. And I can't give myself credit because of that. And it's always been hard for me. But I do look back on my life, and I look back on my career journey, and I think like I genuinely tried my hardest there. I could have done better if my mental health wasn't so ridiculous and I wasn't drinking a million drinks. But I did genuinely try my best. So I guess that's some kind of credit, but I'm better at beating myself up than giving credit.
I think people who consider themselves alcoholics or think they have a drinking problem, or they use the term alcohol use disorder, however you want to identify, it's not about the drinking. It's about how you feel on the inside. And all the things that you said right there are very identifiable. And I also think it's worth taking that opportunity, because I don't do this enough, to point out what are those things along the way that are commonalities that can make you successful. You transition from 5th grade teacher, biochemistry. Now you're an entrepreneur. You teach on the side, which you have told me usually PhDs get that job, and I'm not a PhD yet. And I was asked back. I think that says something in terms of the ability to get things done. I also think that's a trait with somebody who has alcohol issues, of that drive to get things done, except for not drinking.
Yeah, we talked about this in a meeting recently about how hard we push ourselves. And we talked about it in relation to still drinking, but we go really hard. Like, we push ourselves with our careers as hard as we can to get promotions, to go above and beyond, to work crazy hours. Some people are incredibly successful, like chief level success, while they're blasting themselves. And we push ourselves to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym and like be the perfect spouse or parent. Like, we can really go hard despite everything that we're going through, and not sleeping well and having bad mental health all at the same time. It's very impressive.
Yeah. And it's a reminder to me, because I do the same type of beating myself up, even having gone from a split shift traffic reporter to just answering calls, to leadership, to getting fired from this job or that job, but being like a cockroach and still finding my way forward and finding some success doing this. But it's a reminder, because I do the exact same damn thing that I beat myself up. But I look at that pattern of, no matter what, 5th grade teacher, biochemistry, although you jumped around, you found new jobs, you've been successful as an entrepreneur with the Sober Powered Network, with a Sober Powered Life, getting asked back to teach a class. That doesn't happen to everybody.
No. And the professor role, I am super proud of. That one I will give myself a lot of credit for. Everything else I won't.
Why?
Because it's pretty badass. It's badass. Like, I think also because it is a, quote, like, real job. So I feel like people on the outside who don't understand what I do, they see that and they're like, oh, they can brag to their friends, like if it's someone in my family. But when I try to explain what I actually do full time, not many people get it. And I just think it's a huge achievement, like that, to be a professor And the school I teach at was actually just awarded one of the best colleges in America. I wonder if my class last semester pushed them over the edge to get it. I'm just kidding, it didn't. But I just feel really proud of it. Like, I've been working for that my whole life. And like you said, because I don't have a PhD, I thought that I would never get there. And I just kept trying and applying. I've been applying since 2016. And I finally got it. So I'm just proud of that. And I beat out all these Ivy League PhD dudes. So I think that's easier to be proud of because of the prestige. I was always chasing titles and degrees. I still do, but I think that it just seems very impressive. So I feel satisfied with it. I don't know if you feel like that either, like getting a certain title or a certain job.
Yes.
And I could, like, teacher, sorry. When I was a teacher, I always felt like this isn't good enough. People aren't going to be impressed with this. Even though I worked my butt off and I really impacted some kids' lives and helped them understand difficult topics for the first time, I still felt like it was never good enough for other people. No one ever said that to me. That was my own assessment. But yeah, it's hard to give myself credit for things that I don't feel like they have the prestige and the status.
I'm trying to think this through as somebody who has 3 kids who have had 2 have gone through 5th grade, and knowing how important of a grade that is because it's the next place is middle school. And that's a big transition. And the both of my kids who went into 5th grade had the same 5th grade teacher. And just seeing how my son's 5th grade teacher has grown as a person and how so important she was to have my middle daughter go through that class, because with the wrong teacher, she could have gone left because she has a pretty significant learning disability. But because we had the right teacher, she went the other way and got like a President's Award for academic success. That teacher is pretty important in my life because what she did for our kids. And funny that doesn't go through your head, that maybe even if you don't hear the compliment, you could have made that difference in some family's life.
I love that. And I think that's a really good point. And it's kind of like the first thing that comes to mind is when you're on Instagram or you're a podcaster and you get a lot of people saying how much your show or your posts impact them. And then you get one freaking troll who wants to be mean to you, and that has the bigger impact than anything else. I think Laura was talking about this too. I don't know if you watched her stories yesterday.
I did.
Laura from Your Sober Pal, she got a job offer. So yay. I know, right? Yay, thank goodness. It's actually really good. I can tell you more later. But
I'm just happy she got a good job.
Right after all that, like, and it's a good one. I'm happy for her. She's got 5 weeks of vacation. Like, what? But she was talking in her stories about how she really links self-worth to prestige and achievement. And I think she was talking about it in the context of like her salary and like what that number is. But for me, I cared more about the title. If the salary was lower but the title was higher, I would sacrifice the salary. I just always cared about the title, and that was hard for me when I was making the decision to quit biotech, because I really felt that I needed to get one promotion. I needed to just go up one level to just prove I could do it. And I quit before I did that. And that was a super hard decision. I'm not sure who I'm trying to prove things to, and nobody cares. You know, we all know, like, literally no one cares about us and your stupid job title. But I just really feel it. I would have no understanding
if you told me the job title, because I know nothing about biotech. Nothing. So if you told me what it... I honestly, I hear somebody say, like, I'm in biology and biotech. That enough, even if it's an entry-level job, we'd be like, wow, that's cool. You do something important. So if you want to know more about Laura, Laura was on our show. She's episode 126, Your Sober Pal. She has been looking for a job for a long time. So a lot of people's prayers out there got answered. I am thrilled for her.
I know. I was so upset about it and following the journey. And so it's over. She did it.
That's awesome. And it sounds like she landed on her feet exactly in the right place. Things worked out.
Yes.
Let's backtrack a bit before we talk about a sober-powered life. You're the host of the Sober-Powered podcast. You decided just one day, I'm going to flip on the microphone and I'm just going to let this rip. That's how your podcast started. Whereabouts are you ranked?
That's a good way to describe it. That's exactly how it started. It alternates, but I'm usually around like the top 100, sometimes the top 50 on the mental health charts. Right now, I think I'm 60 something.
So here's why that's impressive. Those mental health charts that you see on Apple, it's not like the total amount of listens. It's how many new people are clicking the subscribe. And so if you, as a podcaster, are constantly getting people to be new, to check you out, to me, that's an impressive accomplishment. And to do that with, I'm not a radio person, I'm not a podcaster, I just got sober and I decided I'm going to turn on a mic and just start recording and hit go. And after a couple of years charting on one of the major Apple charts, that's a huge accomplishment. So where do you give yourself a pat on the back for that?
I take screenshots and I send it to people.
Yeah.
And I'm like, look at me. But you said it though, and that's why it's hard to be a podcaster, because it's not even about your total listens. Like, your total listens matter because that determines how much money you can make from advertising. But to chart and to stay relevant, you have to continuously get brand new Apple subscribers. And these brand new shows that are started by celebrities, they obviously launch right to number 1 or 2.
Yep.
And we're just like, ugh. So it's really, really hard. And charting has nothing to do with the number of listens. Because with my network, I know I have like 6 shows. I know the number of listens that everybody gets. And the charting has nothing to do with it. The biggest show in my network, sometimes other shows are charting way above it. It just has to do with how many new people you can get your stuff in front of. And that, it's hard to chase that for years and years and years. And it can be very tiring for podcasters. So if you like this show, everybody, you got to share it in a sober Facebook group or somewhere that you're comfortable to help out your sober friends.
Yeah. Thank you, Jill. I appreciate the plug there. I'm bringing that into it because I'm trying to bring in the entrepreneurial spirit that you're not just a podcaster, you don't have just a kind of a fellowship you've created. This was also part of the business plan is you created that network, again, from scratch. Other podcasts that were on the air, but you're doing it in a way to help you generate revenue and help them generate revenue. How many sober networks were out there before you did it?
0, which is why I was told to do it. And
then what did you do when the person from Spotify told you, you need to do this?
I ghosted her because I was like, not me. I'm just a moron that can't get a promotion at work. I couldn't possibly start a network and do this whole thing. And I ghosted her. Self-confidence, everybody, like, work on your self-confidence. My goodness.
Yep.
I go to therapy every week, by the way. Every week.
If you need therapy, do it. If you go to a 12-step group, there are some people who might say all you need is that 12-step group. There are problems other than alcoholism. You do whatever you need to do. I decided.
Do it all.
Yeah, I decided recently that I was going to build my self-confidence by going on roller coasters because I'm terrified of them. And I feel so accomplished just going on roller coasters. But if you're feeling some of the stuff that Jill is saying, some of that self-doubt, lack of self-confidence, you're in the right place. This is what happens when you have an alcohol problem. And it's not about the drinking. It's about how do you feel on the inside. So these feelings that Jill is expressing are very common if you have a problem with some type of intoxicant. So you got this network, you started your own podcast. Where did a sober-powered life come from? And identify, what is a sober-powered life?
Yeah, so it's about a year old, which is crazy, but
did you do this like the same time that you started the network? You did all this at once?
I know. I'm a crazy person. Like one of my biggest struggles in my first year of working for myself was shiny object syndrome. And I had so many wonderful ideas and I can't do them all. And I had to pick which ones like I really needed to go hard on. And once I figured that out, I felt better. Stuff was working better. But yeah, I started the network. I quit my job in June of 2022. I started the membership quietly in July. And I was building the network in June, July, and August, and then it launched publicly at the end of August. So it took like 3 months to set that thing up. It was so much work. But the membership, I thought, if I can have this little inexpensive monthly thing, that would reduce my stress. From being present in the sober community, I see a lot of people have financial stress, and I wanted to relieve that burden. A lot of people sell one-off things, and that's wonderful. And I know people that are highly, like way more successful than me with that. But I feel very uncomfortable with sales. So I thought that I would go the route of having like low ticket recurring things to not have stress. And I see people like get burned out and quit because they can't figure out, how can I do this 80 hours a week and not be broke? And then all their stuff goes away and they can't help anyone anymore because they get burned out. So that was why I decided to start it. And I still have some of my founding members, and they have helped me so much over the past year figure out, like, how can this be a great group for you guys? What do you want? What would help you the most? We tried things, some things didn't work. And I'm like, okay, let's stop doing that thing. I ask them for feedback every single month. And I don't like feedback, of course, unless it's like, you're the best.
Nobody does.
Yeah, but I ask because I genuinely want them to enjoy the group, and they tell me the feedback. And I feel like I've just done a lot of work on it over the year, and it's really nice. But I started it to try to relieve some of that burden that I see other people go through. I think that a lot of people struggle just to make any money at all. They might seem incredibly successful, and we feel that we don't have to support the creators that we love, sober or anybody. But most creators are broke, and they're stressed, and they're just trying to figure it out, and they don't like to do sales. So if you buy them a $5 coffee because you like their video about chess, it's really helpful. Like, I give my husband crap all the time. He watches the videos on YouTube and he complains about the ads. I'm like, watch those ads. You're supporting that creator. Buy them a coffee. Join their little $5 membership thing. They do so much for you.
I listen to a non-sober podcast called The Lapsed Fan. This is totally outside the realm of sober podcasting, but I'm on their Patreon channel because I like their content, and it's a very funny show. It's for you if you like old-timey wrestling, nostalgia wrestling and stuff. It ends up going way off track, and they're very aggressive about their Patreon channel. That their sales pitch is, you can listen to the show for free, but you're a bitch if you do. And it's time for you to be a grown-up and stop being a bitch. And the way you do that is you give the creator that you like money to do what we do. Otherwise, it's not worth it. And they're doing it a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but they're also right.
They are right.
that this, if I just look at my operation here, the video service that we're recording on, that costs money. The website costs money. The hosting service to get this out costs money. And I'm happy to front that stuff. And any help that I get is very much appreciated from the people who listen. And I think there's a feeling that all of the content that's out there, it should be free. No, it really shouldn't be. If it has value to you, make a decision on what that value is. And I think if you give like a $5 buy me a coffee, that's a pretty small token to give somebody to say, I appreciate you and I'm willing to help.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and I think we just assume that the creators that we love are really big and they're just getting random money from places that we don't know, but we're not.
There's no middle class in podcasting. There are people who make nothing, and there's people who make a lot of money. Yeah,
and I can share this, I think. I don't share it like, on Instagram or on my website, but I pay to host my entire network. It's like $700 a month that I pay. And if I don't find those guys sponsors, that's my money I'm paying.
Yep.
They don't pay me. So it's just to host those podcasts, $700. So it's a lot, and it adds up really quick, and websites and like all this crap and editing software and time. It's a lot. I mean, it's worth it in every way. Even when the first year I did it, I made no money at all. The second year, I made $6,300 and I was pumped. I'm like, look at me. I had a couple ads on my show. I'm doing so good. And I was pumped, but it's a lot of work, but it's so rewarding. And I know how much this stuff can help people. And I feel like podcasting is special because there's so much shame with alcohol.
Yep.
So you can just, no one can see what's on your phone if your screen is off, and you just have your little earbud in, and it's very private. And we're here to support you, and no one ever has to know. And that's why I started it, and that's why I love it. Like, YouTube's a little harder because you have to like sneakily watch a video. But right. And some people reach out and they're like, I just want you to know I love your work on Instagram, but I can't follow you because I don't want anyone to know. And there's just so much shame in it. So I think podcasting is the best thing that we can do as sober creators.
It was so important to me when I got sober almost 10 years ago. And at that time, I could find Recovered, and that was it. I found like a couple other ones, and they sucked. They were not good. And like Mark had like at the time like 600 episodes. So it was like, wow, in 2014, somebody with 600 episodes. But he was it. Like if I wanted something, and he's very AA based. So if you're somebody who is resistant to that, that can be tough of like, okay, I have this one AA podcast and I have nothing else. There is room for everybody, which is why I like to have other podcasters on. We should help each other, because the flavor might be better for you. Maybe you want a female-based podcast because you're a woman and you want to hear those issues and that connects with you. Great. Maybe you want something AA-based. Great. Maybe you want something that's a little different or funny or humorous. That's the great thing. Nobody competes in podcasting because it's so personal. And podcasts aren't at the same time. It's not like a radio show of like, well, I'm on 6 to 8, and you're on 6 to 8, and we're competitors. That's not how it works.
And if you're sober, you're probably a pretty hardcore person. Mm-hmm. So you might listen to like 10 different podcasts, where a regular person might listen to like one health and fitness show, but we go hard. So you can listen to everybody. And there's maybe you want, maybe you're a mom, and mommy wine culture was huge in your journey. I'm not a mom. So luckily, there are podcasts that are just for moms, hosted by moms. And if you like that podcast better, that has nothing to do with like I suck or anything. It's just that's a better fit for you.
Absolutely. It's all personal preference. There's enough food at the table for everybody. So I guess I didn't I've been inside this story a little bit as you've done this society, and you're telling me some things I didn't know, which was I'm going to do this sober powered society, a sober powered life, but it's sort of like that's my bank in case I need a little bit of cash from the podcast network. And I don't think that that's what it is now of what it's become. I'll do this thing and it's different than what other people are doing. And I guess it'll make a little bit of money and it might help somebody. So what does that journey look like? And if I'm going to go to your website and I'm going to sign up, what do I get for this?
Yeah, so it started and the confidence thing came in. I'm like, no one's joining this. And everyone's going to complain about it, or they're going to join it and then they're going to hate it. And then they're going to hate me because they hate it. So that was the thought process. So that's why I just very quietly started it. I thought, like, if I can have ads and I can have the network and I can have a little membership, then I can cover my expenses and then I can figure it out. Because I didn't pay myself for 5 months when I quit. Because I was just trying to figure it out. Just trying to pay for the expenses first. And now it's like kicking butt and it's going strong and we have a lot of really supportive people in there. I'm expanding it. I have a bunch of meetings. So what you get for it is I have 3 different levels depending on what you need and what you want. But I have my ultimate members. They get access to all of the meetings. So there's like 12 or 14 every month, depending on, so like 3-ish a week, depending on how long the month is. The community. And then I'm also starting mini courses. So every month is going to be a different course. And then the regular Living a Sober Powered Life members, they just get the community and the courses. And then I just opened up another level if you just want the courses and like you don't actually want community and meetings. But so there's something in there for everybody. But my meetings go really well, and I was really scared to facilitate meetings. And some people did give me negative feedback about my facilitation. And first I'm just like, oh, they hate me. Everybody must feel this way. And then I was like, okay, what can we learn? Because I didn't go to school to be a facilitator. I'm learning how to do it. And I try to adjust over time and collect the feedback and adjust. And it's also been a really good exercise in collecting feedback and not taking it personally. But I think it helps me too to be connected to my listeners, like really strongly connected to them, and remember what the early days were like. Because some people will say stuff and I'll think like, wow, I forgot about that. I forgot about that struggle or that like little detail, and I'll remember it. And I mean, the thoughts are, this is like a lifelong thing that we have to deal with. So having a reminder of what the early days were like, I think is the most helpful thing for me. To just, anytime there's like a weird thought, I'm just like, ugh, goodbye, get out of here. So I really enjoy it. I love it. I can't believe it's almost a year old.
What would make you expect to, out of the gate, never doing this, be a perfect facilitator for this?
Isn't that a good question? 'Cause I want everybody to like me.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I think that's my biggest thing. I want everybody to like me. I want everybody to love everything that I do, which is impossible. I don't know. I mean, I'm in a program to kind of learn more how to facilitate and like coach and talk to people. So I'm open to learning, but I don't know why I thought it should be perfect right away. But luckily I had some really nice people there in the beginning that when it was super awkward and there were like 3 of us, that they made jokes, and sometimes we even bring that up. Like, remember that awkward small talk we used to have? And so it's nice. I'm glad that I stayed committed. I think there were a lot of points where people would quit and say, like, this isn't successful. This isn't going to work. But I was like, no, this has to work. I see this becoming something that's very needed. and I persevered, and now I think it's just a really good bunch of people, all different types of people, AA people, non-AA people, men, women, people in their 20s, people in their 60s and 70s, all sorts of people.
So you don't have to just be exclusive to this.
Yeah.
You allow AA people in. They're allowed to come in. They can use this as an addendum to their program.
Yeah, we have lots of people that have a sponsor and they go to AA meetings and they like that in-person element. I also have I kind of have different spaces in the way that I build it out, which are like private groups. And I have one that is for discussing like spirituality and religion and that kind of thing. So if that's not your jam and you don't want to be in conversations like that, you just leave the space and you don't see it. So I have these little interest groups to keep things away from people who don't want to see it. Same with like day one. Some people don't like day one posts, so that you just leave it. You never see them.
I think this is a case of you can go at your own speed. There are different types of AA meetings. There are closed, open. There are big book, 12 and 12. If you don't like, I don't like speaker meetings. I do not like them. I've never enjoyed them, so I don't go to speaker meetings. I like literature meetings, so that's what I go to. I'm not doing anything wrong by that. And so this is kind of normal stuff. Here's a question I have with you. Even during the hard times, how much did you drink?
During the hard times of being sober?
No, hard times of setting up this community you created.
Oh, 0.
Exactly. So if nothing else happened, it helped you stay sober.
Yeah, and a lot of people have made friends and they've met.
Yeah.
And I've met some of them in real life, and people are creating like lasting bonds, and sometimes someone has something going on and people in the group call them and they give out it's very similar, I think, to AA, where we just want to, it's not me like supporting everybody and being this like expert. I don't want to position myself that way. It's support that we all give each other. And sometimes we have people that have been in the group a really long time and they have a lot of time, a lot of sober time, and they support everybody, but sometimes they have something going on and then everybody shows up for them. So I think we're all just, I don't know, it's just everyone's so nice. Like I don't know where all the mean people went. They're not in the group. They never found their way over. Everyone's just really, really nice, and it makes me want to be nicer too. Not that I'm mean.
No,
You're a real crumb bum.
I think that was unfortunate. See, he's been in AA for 47 years. He's currently sponsoring 320 people at the same time. He's got his own opinions. So I think having a paywall there does have that filter. There is something to be said that if you have to pay for it, you have to make a commitment.
Yep.
So if you go into one of these fellowships and act like a jackass, you've taken their money. So you're going to lose something for that. But it does give you, I think sometimes when you pay for something, it gives you that incentive to take ownership.
It does. And there have been complaints that it is not free. It does cost money to have it exist beyond the time that it takes for me to do it, but it does cost money. But I used to have a free group for a while, and I noticed that like barely helped anyone. And I noticed a lot of people kind of would disappear and come back when they need the group and disappear. And I think having the paywall over it helps people like commit to it more when they start. They're more willing to try out meetings or try out things or make that intro post and show up. And then once they just dabble in it a little bit, everyone swarms on them with love and then they want to continue. But I think there's so many wonderful free things. You never have to pay to get sober, ever. But I think it does attract people that are very serious about it. And when you're serious about getting sober, you want to help other people and do service work and just be kind. There have been some questionable people that have made their way into the group, but they've only been mean to me and not others. So I'll take it. It's fine. But I've just noticed it's very, very different. And what people get out of it is so much more than what they were getting from the free group that I had, which didn't have meetings and didn't have anything. So it's not a good comparison, but that's just what I've noticed.
This is a controversial topic when it comes to making money off a sober podcast, making money off of these fellowships, for lack of a better term, because I don't think anybody thinks twice about Joe Rogan and the ads that he has, and Spotify needing to make their money back off of him. But it seems as though, okay, if we're talking about addiction and sobriety, it's not good to make money. And I think part of that comes from the AA traditions that
yes.
We're self-supporting, we don't make money, we're nonprofit. Putting this stuff together does take manpower. How committed are you going to be to these people and a community if you're doing it on your free time and you're splitting it with someone? Because at some point, you have to eat. You have to pay rent. There's some of that. So,
yeah, what I've noticed, and you've probably noticed the same, and anyone that's on Instagram, a lot of sober creators are quitting. They're getting burned out and they're getting really tired. A lot of them have passed the 2-year mark, which brings a lot of changes, and you don't have that hardcore sobriety obsession anymore. But a lot of people are quitting. A lot of people are pivoting to talk about other things. There are sober creators that now kind of talk more about the business side of it and not so much about the getting sober side. And I think that if we're doing all of this for free in our spare time, there's only so long that you can do it before you burn out and before you want balance. I'm not saying I even have balance, but I think I have decent balance, and making some money off of it has allowed me to do it 80 hours a week and then have a life. Like, I work on my vacation. Like, I'm going to Hawaii at the end of the month. I'll be working in Hawaii.
Your schedule's ridiculous.
I know. And all my trips, I'm doing meetings from the hotel room. Like, I'm happy to do it, but I can't contribute nothing to my family and have my husband pay for my student loans.
Right.
And like, I have to make enough to live. I'm not over here trying to be like one of those like 7-figure entrepreneurs, and good for them. I just want to like be able to live my life. And then the more that I can be stable, the more that I can invest back. Like, now I have hosts that I pay them to do it. I don't expect them to host meetings for me for free. I pay them to do that. I pay my editor. I'm giving her raises, and like I try to give back and expand and invest more in the community, get new tech, or get more education. That program that I'm in was expensive, so it just allows me to take it more seriously, to be very consistent with it and not get burned out. And I also feel a very strong commitment too when people have a $25 or $37 a month membership fee that they're paying, or I know that I have sponsors that are relying on me to put out episodes every single week. I feel a big commitment to show up consistently and be accountable, and things matter more. You take it, it's just very different. But I did it for free for 2 years before this. So, but I recommend it for everyone. I think anyone who wants to be a creator, you need to do something long form that you can put ads on, because ads reduce your stress. It's free stuff for everybody. Everyone listens to my show for free, my YouTube videos for free, whatever. The YouTube isn't monetized, so maybe that was a bad example, but the podcast, they listen for free. I get paid when you listen to the ad. It's a great exchange. So I think that everyone needs a podcast. And
I
people
agree.
need to share your podcast so it gets bigger.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've got 12 that I'm listening to at probably any one time, if not more. But yeah, do what Jill says. She said she's not good at selling. So help her be a good salesperson and share this podcast and share Sober Powered podcast as well. I'm a believer that people think sales is bad because they equate it to Cutco knives, door to door, or a Kirby vacuum that I don't need to pay $3,000 for that. You're not selling when you're offering something of value. If you're offering something that somebody may just want to dip their toes in sobriety and see a fellowship of some type that may cost them $1 a day, that they're getting a lot out of that. That's not sales. You're offering somebody a solution to their problem, and you should never have to apologize for that.
And you know what I realized too, actually, I'm glad that you said that. I realized that, sorry, sober community, not everybody's great. There are some people that steal other people's content. There are some people that steal other people's content and then sell it. Or they are very concerned with becoming one of those 7-figure entrepreneurs or whatever, or like working 2 hours a day. And there are some people that don't know what they're talking about, but they kind of present that they're an expert. They have programs and they have communities. And mine is really safe and it's really great and it's really helpful and it's very affordable if you consider how much alcohol costs a month. Me offering that is protecting people from going other places that aren't as good. I'm not saying everybody's community sucks except for mine, but there are some that are just questionable or not as good, and other people are going to offer it either way.
This is why you talked about what came into my mind when you talked about content creators who give up after 2 years in the sober community because, I'm riding the pink cloud, or the pink cloud drops you off and now I don't want to do it anymore. You're not going to get a good message from somebody who's just been doing it 2 years. You may, but you're going to get a really good message from somebody who is really passionate, who's been at it 5, 6, 7 years, who has learned what not to do and learned from mistakes. It's going to take time to do that. That's why people in AA don't stop after 90 days. That's why you have an old timer who's been there 35 years, because they need to teach somebody what to do. I don't want to go to a meeting with all people who have been sober for 35 days. I don't know what quality of recovery I'm going to get if I walk into a meeting with a couple of 40-year veterans. I'm going to learn something. 40 years ago, I did this. I screwed up. Don't do this.
Yeah, and I think people look at the old timers and I think the first time I went to a meeting, an AA meeting, I saw this woman, and she didn't say her exact age, but she had been sober like forever, way longer than I've existed. Mm-hmm. And she was talking about like the war. She had been sober a really long time. I think she had been sober like 60 plus years is what she said. And it is awesome. But what I thought, and what a lot of people think too, is like, oh my God, I still have to be doing this and putting in all this work when I'm freaking 60 years sober. Like, can't I just live my life? And I think this like seeking balance in the way of like not doing the work anymore is not always a good thing. You don't have to go as hard as you did in the first 30 days, but you should always be doing something. And that woman going to meetings, she's giving back, she's providing her perspective and her experience, but she's also staying reminded about the beginning. So she stays appreciative of what she has. So I think that it's very important for creators, if AA is not your jam, if Instagram is your jam, it's important for creators to stick around and not get burned out and quit at 2 years. Because what if I'm having trouble? I look to someone like Laura, who has 6 years in a couple weeks. And I look to her as an example of like how to get through stuff, or like I know year 4 and 5 is typically a struggle for people. So now I have an example.
Was for me.
Yeah, that's what I keep hearing. I don't know yet. Oh, and Jeff from Reaction Recovery, he's another example that I look at too, because he's got a lot of time.
Yeah, I went numb at about year 4, year 5. My mom passed away relatively unexpectedly, and I probably went through a year and a half of being numb and didn't know it.
Yeah.
It sucked. And when I came in, people said that 5 year, and I was terrified of year 5. And lo and behold, year 5 happened, and I got that stuff, and I had the tools to get through it. I often say when somebody just got a coin at my Monday meeting for 42 years. And if you look at this woman, I don't know when she got sober. She got sober young.
10 years old.
She didn't look that old to me. And I raised my hand and said, this is awesome that she has 42 years. And if you only have a couple of weeks, don't get psyched out about that. Only think through that if she can get to 42 years, you can get through this weekend. You can get a year. Don't think long term. If she can get 42 years, you can get through today. Use that as an example, not how the hell am I going to get to 42 years and why am I putting this work in? And I think that's also the key is if you work your ass off in your first 30, 90 days, first year, you don't have to have that level of intensity. You have built something and created something, and now you have to nurture it. You can't slack off, but you're not always rolling the boulder uphill because that would be exhausting.
Yeah, nurture it. That's a very good way to put it, because I actually have a good amount of people in my community that got to 1 to 4 years. I think some people even close to a decade of sobriety, and then they fell off, and now they're here with me trying it again. But you do have to nurture it. It doesn't have to be so hardcore anymore, and it doesn't have to be such a struggle, but you can't just ignore it. You have to nurture it forever, unfortunately. But it's not as hard as it may seem when you're looking, like if you're in your first 30 days and you're looking at someone with 42 years. Nurturing it is a lot different than like getting there in the first year.
I'd make a case that a sober-powered life is as good for somebody for 40 years, not because they need to stay sober, but it's a service opportunity.
Yep.
For a nominal fee per month, you can join in and you can be the example you want those other people to be, and it will keep you sober. And it's a service opportunity to me to role model the right behaviors. And talk about the times that because the web wasn't there, this was not an option.
Yeah, and we're really lucky that there are so many options and there's something for everybody and for everybody's budget. There's excellent free programs like AA or Smart Recovery. There's excellent low-cost programs like mine and TLC, the Luckiest Club. And there's really excellent premium programs if you're like, a chief officer of something and you make a ton of money, or you're a business person and you want to be around people just like you. There are communities for that. There's something for everybody, and I think it's so cool. And I think that we're really lucky that we have all these options, and if something doesn't work, you're not stuck with it anymore. You can just go try something else, or you can have a bunch of things going at the same time. And we do need these examples of people like you and people like Laura with a lot of time. We need you creators to not get burned out. I'm always like texting Laura when she's stressed in her stories. I'm like, how can I help? What can I help you with your website? I don't want you to have stress, because she does so much for the sober community, and I really don't want her to get burned out.
It's quality content.
Yep.
It's not really thirst traps. It's not that there's somebody I'm thinking at the top of my mind who I think is an unintentional thirst trap, who may possibly be traveling through Europe at this point, but that's not what the primary thing is. It just so happens. But
I'm not a thirst trap.
I'm far from it. blind people if I take my shirt off and swing around my belly. It's not what people want to see. Well, this one got off the rails here. The idea was to talk about alternatives to AA. It turned into why Jill needs to be coached to feel better about herself, why it's okay to pitch money-making things that add value to people's lives and save lives, and the business of podcasting, which is not only should more people do it, you need to have your head examined for doing it. So there's that too. How would people find you?
If you search for Sober Powered, you'll find me. I am most places.
Okay.
I spend a lot of time distributing content all over the place.
So if they want to join a Sober Powered life or check it out, they could go to soberpowered.com.
Click the join button, and it's right there, and you can check it out.
It's reasonable. I don't think AA is a free program. AA is self-supporting. There's a rent for the church basement, even if it's $50 a month. There's a cost to making coffee and to getting coins. It's not a lot. I know this because I've been treasurer for a whole bunch of stuff. There's costs that are involved there. So somebody's got to support it. We just happen to be self-supporting. If you can't afford it, that's okay. I'll throw an extra $1 in for you. Somebody will do that. But your costs, and I look at you in Recovery Elevator, which is another type of program like this. If you look at what you would drop in the basket for AA, it's comparable. So if this is something that's going to be different, or you just want something more, this is something that's worth trying. And in the end, Bill W. helped create AA because he needed a method to keep sober. He didn't work for the tool worked for him. And if the tool works differently, that gets you to a place where you're happy, joyous, and free, I say that's awesome. Jill, thank you for a wide-ranging conversation, going places we didn't even get into the proper use of Yetis. Maybe another episode.
Can we record the next one exclusively on Yetis that are pointing the wrong way?
Oh, so if we do that, it'll pretty much sound like this.
You'll get
Perfect.
1 stars, though.
Will I get what?
We'll get 1-star reviews. They'll be like, what's wrong with the sound quality here? They should fire their editor.
I would be the one doing that because nobody's more anal about sound quality than I am. I am obsessed, and it's a problem. Jill, thank you for spending so much time.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see all of you next week. Bye, everybody. You made it this far into the podcast. That tells me you're a pretty big fan. If you like what we do and you find value in the podcast, consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod. Your donation keeps us on the air to help out the new guy and helps us defray some of our costs. If you find value in our podcast, please consider a donation at buymeacoffee.com/soberfriendspod.